Hello, welcome everybody. This is our training on the school-wide discipline plan and specifically on the three-strike office referral system and how we can use them effectively as teachers. So let me jump right in. In our coaching and eval form, this is the standard that we'll reference office referrals, specifically the three-strike offenses. I want to start by looking at what an effective teacher looks like when they're using this system. They follow the system, in short. The third strike results in a proper consequence after they being the teacher, applied an intervention or contacted parents. And I'll speak more on that later. There may be some minor inconsistencies here and there because every situation is unique, but the system is largely followed and it's effective in reducing disruptions in their class. Whereas an ineffective teacher isn't consistent with the strikes system. They could be sending out students on their second strike without contacting parents or without some sort of intervention strategy being applied. Or, alternatively, they are not sending out students when they ought to be. They're too lenient, in other words, with the students. And either way, too lenient or overly inconsistent reduces the system's effectiveness overall. So I wanted to create kind of a flow chart or an at-a-glance guide that you could use to just have a tool that you keep nearby so you can quickly reference when should you be sending students to the office with a referral. First up, those three-strike behaviors. These are things like talkouts, tardies, dress code violations, general defiance or disrespect, kind of those low-grade misbehaviors. I'll add gum to this list. I had a lot of teachers this year sending out students, sending them with the office referral on the first strike when they were chewing gum. And I just think that belongs on that third strike behavior. We got to give them a chance to, correct that behavior before we immediately send them to the office. So, on any of these three strike behaviors, whether it's talkouts or gum or whatever, on the first offense, we should give them some sort of nonverbal or verbal warning. Some teachers will walk up next to the student, use proximity, give them the teacher look. Others will tap the desk of the student as a warning. I mean, there's a million ways we can give that first warning. The idea is that we're not overly harsh with the first warning. We're not calling them out in front of their peers necessarily. We're just giving a subtle cue to the student that, hey, this behavior is outside the bounds of what's acceptable. And hopefully, and usually, that's enough to correct that behavior, at least for that day. On their second offense, maybe, they're talking out again, or you've already talked to them once about the gum. This is the second time. This is a good time to, at an appropriate point in the lesson, if possible, pull them out into the hall. Have that private conversation with them. Let them know that, hey, this behavior, it's a pattern now. I see it. We've got to correct it. Let them know that you're going to follow up with their parents. Send them a quick email. What I've learned this year is that sometimes a phone call is far more effective than an email. It's quicker, number one. On your prep period, you just look up the student, get that parent contact info, and just say, hey, hello, how you doing? Just wanted to let you know, today in class, this happened. It happened twice, and I'm just calling hoping that you can speak to them about this. And, I'd hate for it to to go further. And what you'll find is that 99% of the time, the parents are super supportive and they do address it with that student, and then that behavior will change. Failing that, if you're unable to contact parents, the second offense is a good time to introduce some sort of intervention. If you've noticed it's a pattern, I used to go to this, I call them stoplight dice, where I would take them out in the hall and I would show them the dice and I would explain to them how the dice work. I would make it that student's responsibility to put the dice on their desk each day, get them out of a drawer, put them back at the end of class. And I would explain that, hey, if we get to this red dice, if I have to pull this red one, then you know it's an office referral. This is a really effective strategy because they have a constant visual cue right in front of them on their desk. They know exactly how close they are to crossing that line into office referral territory. And I know from experience that this works. And so if you get to that second offense, maybe this is a strategy or something similar that you develop that you could pull out. If they do cross the line and they get to that third strike, we do want to send them to the office. And at that point, I'm going to contact parents and administer whatever consequences appropriate in our tiered system. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So those are the 3 strike behaviors. Other behaviors are more serious, and inappropriate language is a good example of what you might think of as a 2-strike behavior or a 1 warning behavior before an office referral. If they're using garden variety foul language, that might be skip right to that private conversation and parent contact step. And then if they continue to use that foul language, then send them to the office and let us handle it. Quick note on inappropriate language. There are instances where it should be an immediate office referral. And here I'm talking about hate speech. If they use the N-word, or, you can imagine where it's a situation where they've said something so flagrant that they will have seriously impacted the mental well-being of other students in the room. You get to make that judgment call. If you feel like the language they've used is inflammatory to a degree where it needs to be addressed immediately, then certainly send them. But for your garden variety, curse words or inappropriate taboo language, treat it like a teachable moment. Take them out in the hall. Cheating, plagiarism, this is another one where I think it's wise to treat it as a teachable moment. Give them the opportunity to do some sort of alternative assignment to get half credit or whatever you think is fair. But these are middle schoolers, I think giving them that opportunity is often enough to correct a behavior. And if they continue to do it, then definitely send them. I would always follow up in either of these situations, inappropriate language, cheating, plagiarism, with some sort of parent contact. Just so the parent knows that, hey, this is something I've observed your student doing, and it's really important that they address it with their student so that it doesn't happen again. Really rough horseplay. This is not a physical fight. That would be an immediate office referral. But jumping on each other in the hallway or anything that's good-natured horseplay. Anything that's just, rough housing in general. Give them a warning first before you send them. If it is a serious physical altercation, a fight, then you're going to want to send those students to the office right away. there may be a situation where the fight that has occurred or is occurring is such where you can't send them to the office, or you have to escort them to the office. Or you can simply text message Mr. Marsden or I, and we can come to you. Again, you'll make that judgment call, but there's no warning involved here. You got to get admin involved right away. And the same is true for prohibited items, weapons, banned items, or vandalism, anything where school property is being damaged. You don't want to wait on this, but you also don't want to just send students to the office or start searching backpacks on your own. Rather, this is a situation with weapons or banned items or vandalism where you're going to want to report it to us so that we know what's happening, and we're going to do that investigation. And we can be really thorough and take our time and get all the facts. So let us handle that. Okay, so that's kind of a flow chart that you can use to know when and how you should get admin involved in your classroom management as it relates to different types of behaviors. All of this affects school culture. When you think of the kind of school culture you want to have here at Excelsior, know that school culture is something that's built by the collective. Each of us plays a role in constructing the general atmosphere and vibe inside this building. It's built brick by brick with what we tolerate and what we correct and what we incentivize. These are the things that end up defining who we are. Every rule that we ignore and every rule we enforce, we are teaching these young students how to treat each other and how to treat us as staff and faculty. And so it's really important that there's some consistency across the board. This is kind of a bell curve of office referrals by staff. And I think it's just important to look at this data and think about what it might reveal. This value on the x-axis here is the number of office referrals, and each one of these little bricks here is a staff member. And so what this is saying is that the majority of staff are sending between, I would say, 10 and 20 office referrals per year over the course of the year. And that number starts to taper off here as we get into these higher values of office referrals. And if you're over here in this range, let's say 0 to 5 office referrals per year, well, that means one of two things if you fall into that category. Either A, you are just a tenured, magnificent teacher who has such strong procedures and classroom management that you have no problems essentially in your classroom, and I hope that's the case. Or you might be being over tolerant of certain behaviors. Maybe you've got kids that are talking out a lot and you're just not sending them. You're just giving them warning after warning. On the other side of the bell curve, we've got teachers that are doing, 40, 50 office referrals per year. And that might indicate that you've become over-reliant on that system. You've kind of exported classroom management to the office, and that's not healthy either. We want you to take ownership of that process and manage your classroom effectively and reduce those behaviors effectively on your own. So, how do we get into this zone where you're using it effectively without becoming over or under reliant? I think this is a good time to pause the video and we'll continue this to in just a minute.